Any student of the Megillah who looks at the Megillah in an in-depth way and tries to understand both the pshat, the simple meaning of the text itself, as well as the commentary of Chazal through the Midrashim and the Gemarot, notices that there's something unique about all of Sefer Megillah. The Megillah Esther has the most Midrashim of any other Sefer in Tanakh. It also is the only book in Tanakh that actually has an entire section in the Gemara that goes through the drashot of Chazal on pasuk by pasuk, verse by verse, to explain the inner meaning of the text. Now it's quite strange that we have this. Why did Chazal feel this need to have extra commentary on this book? If you read through the book, you notice that there are three major differences between Sefer Megillat Esther and all the other Sfarim in Tanakh. The three major differences are as follows. First and foremost, everybody knows that it doesn't mention Hashem's name. Now, there are other books, namely Shir HaShirim, that doesn't mention Hashem's name, but this is a book that speaks about a religious connection between the Jews and their religion, but doesn't mention Hashem's name, which is quite strange. The second thing is that most other books in Tanakh that have a story tell us why that story is happening. For example, we know why punishments happen throughout Tanakh. Hashem brings a Navi, the Navi says, you are being punished because of X, Y, and Z. Now, when it comes to the Megillah, nobody tells Bnei Israel why they're being punished. It just is a punishment for something. And the Jews, when they do tshuva within the book, they don't know why they're doing tshuva. They just pray to Hashem, or pray, period, not knowing to who they're praying, nor why they're praying, or why they're doing tshuva. The third difference is probably the most major difference between the Megillah and all the other books in Tanakh, and that is that the Megillah doesn't seem to follow the normal storyline of the Tanakh. The Tanakh, from the beginning to the end, other than certain books that are philosophical in their nature, has a set timeline. There's no story that's out of place that you can't put within the timeline of the entire Tanakh. And we have 5 books that are written around the same time as Megillat Esther. We have the book of Ezra and Nehemiah, the book of Daniel, we have the book of Haggai and Zechariah. There are many books that are written around that time period, but they're talking about a different story. They're talking about the story of Bnei Israel coming back from the Galut and going to build the land of Israel, going to build the Beit HaMikdash. The Megillah is a story from that time period, but it's kind of like a standalone episode. It's on its own and doesn't fit with the entirety of the story of Tanakh. These three differences cause Chazal to focus on this book and try to connect those concepts to the Megillah. Most of Chazal's writings about Megillah can be split up into those three categories. Either they're trying to show how Hashem is within the story, for example, by saying how Gavriel pushes Haman onto Esther, or how he's changed the book. Hashem makes sure that the book opens up exactly to the story of Mordechai when Achashverosh can't sleep. And it also tries to fit the punishment within some sort of grand scheme of what the Jews did wrong. And there's a whole Gemara about the Jews going to the party, or whether they bow down to idols, try to have a reason for their punishment. And lastly, many of the Midrashim focus on how Bnei Israel are part of the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash through this story of Achashverosh choosing Mordechai at the end and then giving them the permission to build the temple. Many of the Midrashim follow that timeline to try and put the Megillah into this global story of Tanakh. What's interesting though is, now that we know that Chazal tries to fix what makes the Megillah seem out of place within Tanakh, we have to ask, why would the Megillah not do that? Why would the Megillah leave these pieces out? I think the Megillah is trying to teach us what it means to be in Galut. Truthfully, our lives today, even today, seem very similar to that of the Megillah and very different from the rest of Tanakh. Usually, we don't see Hashem in the open. We don't notice exactly when Hashem is doing things and not. We also don't notice why we do things wrong. Very often we have Tehillim and we pray and we dive into Hashem and we do tshuva without having any clue of what we're doing tshuva for. And even more so, it's very hard to see our historical place within the larger picture of what the Jewish people's history is like. Therefore, comes the Megillah and tries to demonstrate to us, these are the things that you don't notice, but they're still happening. And Chazal tries to teach us that even though we live in a time, and since the Megillah we have lived in a time, we don't notice Hashem's place, we don't notice our place in history, we don't notice why things are happening necessarily in the clearest of ways. Chazal comes to tell us, they are happening for a reason. It is part of a destiny. It is part of history, exactly the same way as the rest of Tanakh. So hopefully, just as Chazal were able to place the context of the Megillah into the rest of Tanakh, we also can find a way to place our lives and our destiny within the same context as the rest of Tanakh. Purim Sameach.